righty, today we are talking about values and how values can impact the type of transformation that you want to see where you are. So depending on your organization's values or the values that leadership holds, that will determine the way a transformation goes. And on this call today, we've got several people who have seen transformation happen and have seen how values can impact that transformation. And so I'm going to throw it over to the group to talk about what has your experience been and how can a organization's or leadership values change or dictate the way a transformation goes?
When we say values, I think it's important to note that we're talking about the levels, the integral levels, and those invisible value systems that underlie, right? So primarily we're talking about Amber, which is focused on balance and controls, controlling risk. The level above that, Orange, which is focused on achievement, performance, financial success. And the level above that, Green, which is focused on, equality, morale, happy teams, etc.
All right. So, Leo, you brought us in with explaining to us when we talk about values, what we are referring to are our levels. And if any of you watching right now who are joining us, levels are, it's an integral theory. We've got a video on it. We'll put it down in the link below so that you could catch up with us. But we're just talking about what we value in any sort of culture, community, and how those values can dictate the way a transformation might go or the way the culture is moving. And so we're talking about how that can impact the things that we do in Agile. And so, Leo, I'm going to just throw it back to you since you were catching us up on what we mean by values. And so I'm really curious for your own experience, like when you've seen something that we're calling orange, what does that look like? And if you see something called green, what does that look like? And when we want to change a level, what does that look like?
Right. So each of these levels brings with it a strength and a pitfall. So the Amber level brings the strength of everything is safe, right? Everything, you are not going to get a lot of things going wrong in Amber because it's so tightly controlled. But the pitfall is a lot of process, a lot of red tape. Things move very slowly from the Amber perspective. When you go from Amber to Orange, you get this kind of move fast and break things mentality. So excellent innovation, very exciting. Performance is through the roof, but achievement and performance are so greatly valued that nothing else is valued. So they're very happy to destroy the environment, to backstab each other, to step over or step on people. There's just no concern whatsoever for it's success at any cost. And then you could see that Orange is solving the problem that Amber had, where Amber was too slow and they didn't innovate. It drops those balances and controls and goes into making progress. Green has a look at Orange and they go, well, you guys have just made a big mess. Everybody's crying. It stinks like crap in here. And it's great that our financial stuff is through the roof, but everybody's overworked. They're not happy. Everybody wants to quit. So they go, so we're going to slow down. We're going to ask everybody what they need. And we're all going to have a big love fest. And Green, in the way that Orange abandoned the Amber controls, Green abandons Orange's drive to succeed. So everybody feels great, but nothing actually gets done.
Leo, when we marry that up then with Agile, are we saying that when companies with one of those cultures adopts Agile, they take from Agile what suits their culture? Or are we saying that Agile could be used to take someone from their culture to a new culture? So if you've got an Amber culture and you find a framework which is a green framework, could you install that framework and move your company towards green? Or are you just going to take the green framework and find any Amber and apply it to your Amber culture?
Well, that's kind of the point, right? So the reason we're talking about this is to bring attention. Because if you bring in a green framework into an Amber culture and you are not noticing that you have an Amber culture, you're going to get an Amber result. So if your intention was to get a result where people are happier to work there and you were looking to achieve a more green result, and you don't address the underlying Amber culture, you don't make a shift to culturally start to align with those greener values, you will not get the result you're looking for.
So is it fair to say that the implementation of Agile has doesn't really drive a move through these levels? Like it's a framework isn't strong enough to change your culture by itself. It has to be a desired cultural change that's going to move you? Or are we saying actually that frameworks can help achieve that?
Well, that's kind of the amazing thing about Agile, right? So Agile has integral stuff built into it. I don't know whether that was intentional, but Amber does say balance and controls are important. It does say that achievement and progress is important. And it does say that healthy teams with happy people are important. So Agile, from a values perspective, is integral. The tricky thing is most companies aren't. So Agile done correctly, with attention towards creating awareness that those three things are important, can create an integral culture.
The leadership team has to be like on board with that transformation first, in order to help move that culture. And at the same time, I think that you can start by working with different teams and leading by example and behaving differently, more agile. That's another way of doing that transformation day by day. It's not something, in my opinion, that happens like all of a sudden or in a week or two, but with the leadership team, with alignment with some teams that are working with this mindset, I think that's a way to achieve the transformation.
I can see useful for understanding organizations. So if you're watching this and you're kind of following along, but you're not quite sure how you can use this to help you kind of in your role, either as a coach or as a team member, like how do we use this information to kind of lead to better outcomes for teams and organizations?
I think that a good way to see this, and it has to do with what we've talked before in our YouTube videos, is to have an approach from the 4-quadrant perspective, and maybe you can map that and say, okay, what do we want, each of us? What do we want with this? And put that on the table and talk about it. And why is it that we are that it motivates us? What do we see? What's our purpose with this? Then agree on the agreements. How are we going to work together as a team? What are we going to do? What are the things that we are ready to move on and work together? And there are other things that we are still going to do it like more conventional. And also to identify KPIs, metrics, something that is more tangible, to see the progress and see how are we doing with this. Is it effective? Do we need to include something else? And also, if it is needed to update a process, maybe we need to design a new agile process throughout the organization, or maybe it's just, okay, these won't help us achieve our purpose of being more agile. Let's adjust. But I would do that in a very simple way, but to take into account the four perspectives. I think it's a good way to go.
Lucy, I love that idea, and I think that it's such a great solution. It's something people can use, and we'll put a link to the video below to our quadrants video, so you can all just get a better look at what that means. My question to the group is, sometimes when you go into an organization that has a certain set of values, it's really due to the leadership all the way up top. And this might be what the kids call a hot take these days, but kind of controversial. At what point do you just start saying to people, you're no longer a fit for this company because you don't align with our values and you're holding us back? Like, is that something that we do? And I'm not suggesting that we should, but does that happen? I mean, we've all been on teams and in places where there clearly are values at odds between either leadership themselves or leadership with the rest of the company. Someone comes in saying they believe one thing and then they end up doing another. And like, at what point do you work with that person, and for how long? Like, what is what do you do?
So that's an interesting one. If we were going to use these ideas and take them to their full expression or their logical conclusion, if you had a person that was firmly amber and they're a leader in an organization that has orange objectives, they are not going to achieve their objectives. So they will probably be fired, right? They will just not have the capacity to achieve those objectives because there isn't a values-based fit. And it'll be performance-based. No one will say, well, you have the wrong values, so you're not going to be there. They won't think about that. But if they did think about that, rather than firing that person could be moved to an area of the company that has a strong amber goal, right? Move them away from the performance-related thing and move them over to be a leader in risk or compliance, and then they're going to perform.
Leo, that's very interesting to see these levels as like potentially just where they could fit better in an organization. If you're talking risk and compliance versus if you're talking transformation, if you're talking development, maybe there are certain levels that if you know yourself you fall into, you might be better suited for a specific type of role at a company.
Yeah, and you know, some coaches in the past would talk about agile smells, right? You could just kind of walk in and to see a team and see a team interacting, and you could just like, you can't describe what it is, but something just smells off with their agility. And you could look at this like integral smells, right? So if you walk in and you hear people like, what should we be listening for? How can we determine what level people are coming from so we can meet them at their value system? So if you're hearing people talk about like innovation and the coolest, latest tech and performance and raising the bar, you know they're probably orange. You know, if people are just, if meetings are just kind of like, there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of talking, and at the end of the meeting, everybody really feels good, but no one can tell you what decision's been made. I know we've all had those. You're probably with a group that's primarily green, right? And if you're in a group that are basically just constantly like, it's very bureaucratic. Oh no, you can't do that until you fill out this form and submit this request. You know, you're probably dealing with something that's amber.
Well, I guess that's it for today. This has been really awesome and insightful. We'd love to know what you think in the comments below. Can you recognize where you're at on the levels with your organization? We'd love to hear from you. And if you're curious to learn more, just reach out to us in the comments below. Thank you, Lior, Ben, Lucci, and Eddie. We will see you next time.